What's going on, everyone? I'm just a typical, average American here today to react and learn about what happened to London's trams. London's trams. This is a really interesting subject for me because as soon as I saw this video title, I was like, I do have an association in my mind. I don't know if this is an American thing or my age or what, but I have this connection between trams and Britain? And I mean, I vaguely even remember what a tram is. It's kind of like these vehicles that are like buses that are attached to the road, you know? I don't even know when I would have seen one in real life. Tram, England. If I look up trams, England, oh, well, these are actually like modern trams, aren't they? Ooh. Yeah, this thing. Hold on. I'll make this bigger. Oh, tiny. Okay, blow it up. This thing. I have this image in my mind. Oh, look, it's double-decker. That's kind of fun. And I sure as heck didn't know that they were dying out or gone, but they're definitely pretty old school, and I know about trams, and I associate them with London. So this video actually kind of spoke to me in a way. So let's check it out. What happened to London's trams?
Ask most people what they know about trams in London, and they'll say,
I know there's trams in Croydon, but I think that's it.
Oh.
But did you know London used to have the biggest tram network in Europe? So what happened to it? And why is Croydon the only part of London that has trams today?
London used to have the biggest tram network. So does that mean people living in the UK really associate trams with London? Maybe it's not just me. I don't know why I even have this association. I feel like it's from a movies or something.
Of course, the best way... In oldie-woldy times, when pretty much every mode of transport involved a horse, the best way of getting lots of people to the same place was an omnibus. It was an uncomfortable and bumpy ride. But a clever solution would be brought to London by an eccentric Victorian billionaire from America, whose name was George Francis Train. Ha! Really? Mr. Train's cleverly simple idea...
I didn't know this video was like a funny, that it had some funnies in it. And it's historical. Wow.
...was to have omnibuses run on rails running along the street. Mr. Train called them trams.
Oh, wow. Okay, I can't skip over this. It's literally the invention of it. So is it attached into the ground to begin with so that the horses could only pull it in one possible direction on one route? Wow, that makes so much sense, actually.
...was to have omnibuses run on rails running along the street. Mr. Train called them trams.
Wow.
Suddenly, horses could carry much heavier loads and go much faster and smoother without giving everyone an orgasm. This also made them affordable. Fares were set at the reasonable price of half a penny. But other road users hated Train's trams. The rails weren't recessed into the road, they stuck out good and proper, tripping up other vehicles and causing their wheels to break off.
Okay.
But Train continued to build his tramways all over London without ever asking permission first, until he was stopped in his tracks in 1861.
Is that true? That is like so wild to think about, because no one would dare just start building stuff, transportation and railways into public roads nowadays without the proper permits and stuff. You just get arrested, right? Is this really that back in the day where he wasn't worried about that?
When he was arrested for breaking and injuring the Uxbridge Road.
Oh.
From now on, any entrepreneur wanting to build tramways in... From now on, any entrepreneur wanting to build tram...
Who was he chasing?
Any entrepreneur wanting to build tramways in... From now...
Some guy waving at the camera. Okay.
Now on, any entrepreneur wanting to build tramways in London would have to bury their tracks nicely into the road out of harm's way and pay for the maintenance of the entire road surface.
Yeah.
This meant they now had to solve a rather sticky problem. The average horse produced between 15 and 35 pounds of manure per day. It was famously predicted that if London's horse traffic continued to increase, it would be 9 foot deep in horse manure by 1950. The solution eventually came at the end of the 19th century with a source that was safe, efficient, cheap, clean and reliable: electricity.
Okay. Yeah, this is the tram as I know it. In my mind, I feel like I am stuck like 50 years in the past with what my mind views as a tram system. these things, electric trams built into rails in the ground, versus what probably exists today.
Electricity could be harvested either from cables above the road or a conduit below. Now that horses were no longer required and the trams were totally turd-free, the network was able to grow and grow. The London County Council built new connections linking working-class suburbs with industrial areas to help get people to work, making it the first truly public transport system in London.
Wow.
They spread particularly far in South and East London to areas which, by no coincidence at all, continue to be poorly served by the tube.
Yeah, any circumstance I've ever seen a tram or seen it on a video or something, or maybe in a movie, it's always come across as this historical, vintage kind of thing where I'm like, oh, I've never been on one of those things, but that'd be cool. That's from back in the day. Yeah, you basically never find an actual tram, as far as in my experience, in the United States. Maybe they exist in some cities or something, maybe, but I sure don't know.
Everywhere in London was getting electric trams. Well, almost everywhere. If you look at this map of the network, you'll see a vast area close to central London where tram tracks fear to tread. These were the posh parts of town.
Well, actually, I was thinking about it. If the inventor is that guy with the tall hat named Train was from America, we definitely had trams in America, right? I've just never really seen them.
Kensington and Westminster. Well, that's understandable, I suppose. Westminster had historic streets, and those overhead cables were so ugly. That was the reason they weren't wanted here, right? Wrong.
This guy.
Many trams used the conduit system with no visible cables. So if it wasn't cables, why were they so trams-phobic? Trams, for want of a better expression, were for poor people. Local campaigners complained that trams catered for an undesirable class of person and successfully kept the entire central London area unbetrammed.
Thank you, sir.
Because of this, two vast networks north and south of the river remained unconnected. Not because of the Thames, but because of toffs. And it would stay like this until 1906, when...
Wow, they literally didn't want to extend the tram system everywhere because they thought it would stop poor people from being able to get to certain places. Jeez.
A big and very impressive tram infrastructure project was built here. Kingsway in Holborn was built by bulldozing straight down the middle of the slums. The Victorians used to do this sort of thing all the time. But Kingsway was special because it came with its very own tram tunnel, something never done in London before, or since. This small but truly unique piece of track linking north to south meant that by 1914, London had the biggest tram network in Europe. Yay! But not.
Yeah, I mean, make no mistake, this sounds like a really incredible feat of engineering and technology for the time.
For long. After World War I, money was tight, and tram rails were expensive to maintain. So the tram operators began turning to a newer, cheaper piece of technology, the trolleybus. Trolleybuses were like trams, but on pneumatic tyres. They didn't need rails, which meant they were quieter and more flexible, and they...
Trolleybus. I don't know if this was ever a thing in America either. I've certainly never in my life heard the expression trolleybus. I just would call it a bus. This would be a double-decker bus. Okay.
They could overtake things like this dig. It was the beginning of the end for the tram, and the middle of the beginning for the trolleybus. But alas, alack, London's trolleybuses were not long for this world.
Oh.
One person whose fault this was Minister for Transport Ernest Marples, the man responsible for provisional driving licenses, MOTs, traffic wardens, single yellow lines, double yellow lines, Dr. Beaching, and several affairs with prostitutes.
Oh
Marples wanted people driving more, partly because the car was a symbol...
Wait, he invented yellow lines? Really?
The man responsible for provisional driving licenses, MOTs, traffic wardens, single yellow lines, double yellow lines, Dr. Beaching, and several affairs with prostitutes. Marples wanted people driving more, partly because the car was a symbol for individual freedom, but partly because Marples' family ran a tarmac company.
Oh.
Marples got councils to change their streets to make more room for cars, which meant cables had to be torn down. London's vast network of trams and trolleybuses would need to be replaced by motorbuses. Until then, the idea of getting motorbuses to...
So the guy in charge of this literally had a conflict of interest, and that influenced basically the history of transportation in London? Funny how these things work.
To take on such a big job was unthinkable. Motorbuses were small and heavy and noisy and inefficient. But that would all change in 1959. The new Routemaster bus, which was super efficient and ran on diesel, could carry almost as many people as a trolleybus, but had two massive advantages. One, drivers wouldn't have to worry about the trolley poles coming loose, and two, they could overtake each other. In fact, they could go literally anywhere.
With diesel fuel now cheaper than ever, it was a no-brainer. From 1959, Routemasters began replacing tram and trolleybus routes all over London.
Wow. I didn't know I was going to get like a whole history of buses, actually. Although they are like the cousin of the tram. I'm still not sure I understand what a trolley bus is, to be perfectly honest. Trolley. What makes a trolley bus a trolley bus? Electric bus that draws power from dual overhead wires. Oh, using spring-loaded trolley poles. Okay, that's the distinction, I think. The trolley poles. All right, fair enough.
The network's capacity was reduced slightly, but since passenger numbers were dwindling anyway, nobody cared. Well, lots of people cared, and they were really upset about it, but nobody who mattered cared.
It was out with the and in with the... So, is there anything left of London's tram and trolleybus network that you can still see today? Well...
There are a few surviving tram sheds, some...
Right, like, aren't these trams now sort of officially part of the quaint history of London? At this point, you might as well keep whatever's left as kind of a fun little homage to the past, right? Like a historical artifact at this point.
Still with tram tracks in. There's a couple of trolley poles still there that are now used as lampposts.
Ooh.
There's a bus route in West London that still uses the number 607, the same as the original trolley.
Boring!
And this building in Walthamstow has the word tramway on it.
So the answer is no, not really. Nothing impressive. With one massive exception. This is what's left of the Kingsway Tunnel.
Oh, right.
You can still see very, very, very clearly where the tram tunnel entrance used to be. Sometimes they open it up for tours, sometimes they use it as an art gallery, but at the moment it's being used to help Crossrail construction.
Oh, they actually didn't convert this into anything. Huh. That seems kind of like a shame. It's a cool tunnel. Could this be something?
Down at the other end, the entrance has been turned into the door of a nightclub, and the middle half has been turned into the Strand underpass.
Okay.
And so the trams and trolleybuses had gone, and London forgot about them. And so did the whole country.
Cities up and down the UK were ripping up their tram tracks and pulling down their trolley cables.
Yeah.
The only place in the country that kept its tram was Blackpool Pleasure Beach.
Trams for decades evoked images of nostalgia in the olden days.
Exactly! The nostalgia! The images of the olden times, exactly.
To take the tram for a farthing.
Even the word tram was funny.
Straight in front of a tram.
But then, something changed.
Traffic congestion was worsening, demand for public transport was increasing, pollution became a thing, and trams, suddenly, all of a sudden, had gradually started to suddenly become appealing again.
Oh.
Croydon in South London, which had a growing town centre and no tube, was the perfect place for a 21st century experiment. For the first time in 48 years, trams were coming back.
Yeah. When I Googled it, weren't there pictures of the... Isn't this like a modern tram or something? Where is this? Yeah, look at these things. They look like they're attached to the ground. All modern and stuff. Oh, okay. Maybe we'll get into that.
These trams would be a fair bit different from the 20th century ones.
Yeah.
They were single, not double-decker, and they were multiple articulated units, which basically means they're bendy. As well as
Yeah.
running on the streets, the new trams would make use of bits of disused or underused railways, combining the on-street convenience of buses
With the separateness and speed of trains.
Cool.
The Croydon tram link opened in 2000 was an instant hit,
Is he about to get run over?
attracting 15 million passengers in its first year. And that number's kept going up ever since.
At around the same time, very similar tram schemes opened in Manchester, Nottingham, Sheffield, Birmingham and Edinburgh. And don't get me started on the resurgence of trams in the rest of Europe.
So trams are very much back in business for the 21st century.
I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. I don't live in a major city in the United States, but I am pretty darn confident that these tram systems did not catch on in America.
But what about London? Are there plans for any more new tram routes in London?
The Cross River Tramway, planned to open in 2016, was meant to run from Camden Town to Peckham/Brixton. The route used Kingsway, but bafflingly had no intention of using the old Kingsway tunnel, instead running on the street above.
The scheme had plenty of support, but not enough plenty of money, so it never happened.
Ah.
Then there was the West London tram, planned to run along one of London's busiest bus corridors from Shepherd's Bush to Uxbridge. But two burly men in suits holding a big sign were stood in the way, so this never happened either.
Okay. So if I'm understanding correctly, there is a benefit to having trams. It's not just that they're kind of cool. They are faster than traditional buses with the railway? Sort of like a bus-train combination?
To be fair, a road like this isn't suitable for modern trams, and most of London isn't. To dig up a street this narrow to build the tracks would be prohibitively impractical.
Some campaigners tried to save the West London tram by suggesting a compromise, where they just put the electricity cables up and make it a West London trolleybus instead.
Personally, I think that would have been a brilliant idea. A trolleybus is the best of both worlds. Cheaper and easier to build than a tram, but it still replaces noisy, polluting buses. In fact, come to think of it, why don't we do that everywhere?
Right. So we're also talking about the fact that they run on electricity and are good for the environment?
London's more than 8,000 buses...
Oh wait, look at that girl waving. I don't think that was part of it. I don't think he meant for... She's dressed like a zombie or something. On the right side, that's funny. Oh, there she is.
8,000 buses are a huge source of dangerous polluting air that kills 9,500 people per year. TfL have tried to make them greener, but the best they've been able to come up with is a hybrid bus that uses its diesel engine a mere most of the time.
Yeah.
The bad news is the technology for a 100% pollution-free bus that doesn't need cables at all is not coming anytime soon. So I say, let's get a groove on and hang those cables back up.
A modern trolleybus would only need cables on 2/3 of its route, and those cables wouldn't need to be so spiderwebby anymore.
Oh, wow. Okay. Again, like this trolley bus stuff. This is as interesting to me as the tram. I've never honestly seen a trolley bus. There's cables above it? Is that how it's charging? What the heck? Okay, that's neat.
There's no avoiding it. Those overhead wires would still be fugly. But it's not just technology that's moved on, it's our priorities too. And if 21st century Londoners finally get to breathe clean air, then those hideous wires might end up looking quite beautiful.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want to hear my new podcast?
No.
Great! It's called Mates Bants with an 8.
Oh, is this like an ad for the podcast, I assume? Oh, okay, it's an ad for Adobe Premiere, actually. Okay. I think that's it. Fair enough. That was good. This was by Jay Foreman. I like that. He is very, very, very funny. I've never seen him before. Very funny, while at the same time being shockingly informative and giving good history with really random funny stuff. Any interesting comments here? I'm not from London, and I care little for public transport, but this is so entertaining. I binged your channel. True, he is really entertaining in a very unique way, honestly. Where the bit where he chased the cyclist kills me. Me too. I liked that. Actually, most of the people here are just appreciating the comedy of this video, rather than the information, which is kind of what I'm trying to focus on here. The tram system. I had no idea. This was a good little video. I wasn't aware it was going to be so historical, so informative. And this is great. I even learned about trolley buses and other types of buses and electric things, and this was good. But it does sound like the electric or the tram system had to go away, and now it kind of made a comeback, and maybe it should be pushed a little further in a slightly different electrified future kind of direction. Interesting. Very interesting. Okay, anyway, if you found this kind of interesting as well, feel free to give this video a like or leave a comment. And if you're interested in more videos like this, me reacting to stuff in the UK, Great Britain, London, England, all that kind of stuff, feel free to subscribe for more. And until then, thanks for watching, and see you next time.